we obviously have a set of the syllabus we implement. Different maktabs will be using different syllabuses when it comes to that. The fiqh, akhlaq, akhlaq and adab, aqaid, and seerah and history are the core subjects usually taught in the madrasah. Now, no matter how good a syllabus is, it's theory. And this point is very important because you are not still connecting them to Allah Ta'ala. Your children will go through the system, pick up a lot of knowledge of akhlaq, aqaid, etc. But creating a bond with Allah Ta'ala and a bond with Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam is very important. And that spiritual, ruhani connection is something that needs to be gradually done from day one in the maktab. You would have, I don't know if you had the chance last year, Maulana Yusuf Biko did from South Africa tour around the country on Imaniyat. Now, if every maktab have daily 5 minutes muzakara of Iman at the start of maktab, daily, from reception till when they leave you in year 6, 7, 8, 9, however long they are staying with you. Every day, madrasa starts with 5 minute Imani Muzakara, talking about the greatness of Allah and make the students engage in that. Very simple things, you talk about the Asma'ul Husna and different names of Allah Ta'ala, but every day, let's say Monday, you get the teacher to say something about Allah Ta'ala being As-Sami' or Allah Ta'ala being Al-Basir. And the following days, the children replicate that. That's for the whole week. Then the following week, you go on to another part. So that is one thing about Imaniyat, and also the greatness of Allah Ta'ala and His bounties. So Maulana Yusuf Biko used the example, he put a glass of water in front of our children. And you know what our Akabirin used to do, the zikr and the darb of the heart, of constant Allah, Allah. So we are informally making them do that by constantly talking about Allah Ta'ala daily. For instance, Maulana took a glass of water and he said, what is this? It's water. What are the benefits of water? The children said, oh, we drink it, we wash with it, we clean our clothes with it, we feed the plants. And then a whole list of things can be mentioned about the benefit of water. Now, we have to make the children talk about this bounty of water with the words, my Allah. So every day something like this is happening, and you can do that with every blessing, the eyes, the ears, the smell, the trees, benefits of trees, the benefits of different animals, anything, any ni'mat Allah has given, you can do that. For instance, taking water. So, my Allah created water so I can quench my thirst. Next child has to say something else. My Allah created water so I can wash my clothes. My Allah created water so I can clean myself. My Allah created water so I can feed it to my pets. My Allah created water so, but you're attributing every blessing you have about water to Allah Ta'ala. And you're saying, my Allah, my Allah, my Allah, and every child is listening to that. 5 minutes every day, talk about Asma'ul Husna, talk about repetition of the blessings of Allah, but 5 minutes start of madrasa every day for 6-7 years, talk about Allah. You tell me, would intentionally or not, a connection not be built with Allah Ta'ala? Right? And that is very important in this day and age, to create that connection so that even after the child leaves you, they have a special connection to Allah. And the second thing, which is also very important, alongside all the different things you teach them, is daily dua to Allah Ta'ala. Daily. Reception, children will also do it, and you will be amazed at the level of words they will use for dua. No Arabic words and Arabic duas to be done in parrot fashion. Make them do dua at their level in their words. So, reception children, oh Allah protect me, oh Allah protect my father, protect my mother, oh Allah give us our food, oh Allah give me this, or let them say what they want. But every day, just a minute, 2 minutes at the end, come on, finishing time, we're going to do dua. In the older classes, a more intense form of dua, and you get all the other children, so different child does it every day, and all the other children make Ameen. And you ask them, what do you want, what's specially needed, what does your family need, make dua for that today. And you do that every day. For 6-7 years, the child is doing dua. When he falls on hardship outside their maktab life, they will turn to Allah. That connection would have been built in the maktab. And we need to, alongside these, having a good syllabus where we are making sure their fiqh, akhlaq and aqaid and their connection to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam through seerah books is done. We need to make sure that we build a connection to Allah Ta'ala whilst they are the maktab. Otherwise, no matter the best syllabus you bring in and you don't connect them to Allah Ta'ala, your children will be lost once they go away from you, from the maktab, if they are not connected spiritually to Allah Ta'ala. So this is a very easy way which doesn't consume much of our time. It's drip fed into their heart over the years they are with you in Madrasah. And it's very important that we build that connection. Also, when the children are in their final year, okay, one of the aspects is the challenges outside. For instance, a great challenge is the LGBTQ issue outside. Again, in an informal way from year 1, for instance, reception children, how do we teach them? If they are being introduced to Jack and John in storybooks, it's our responsibility to introduce them to Adam and Hawa. We're not talking about any genders, we're just talk about how Allah created only Adam alayhi salam and Hawa alayhi salam, and how the creation of mankind moved on. Start that from reception. And in an informal way, you are drip feeding into their subconscious mind about what Islam has about gender. And as they grow older, you can incorporate that in a better way, in a more intense way, and then be blatant about it in later ages also. But make sure these challenges are being addressed in the madrasa in a way where not teaching them to be intolerant and showing hatred and spewing hatred, so somebody can go to school and say, oh, my Maulsab said this and you have a problem at hand. Do it in a subtle way where you can't, nobody can point that finger, oh, we said this and that's our belief. We didn't say, okay, go and break somebody's window if they like that. We didn't teach them any of that, but in a subtle way, we have to make sure that the challenges they have outside are addressed before they leave us. Remember, at the start we mentioned, we've got to give them enough knowledge of Deen, Farz-e Kifaya, which will suffice for them to live their life in this world until they die in a way where they're still connected to Deen. So that connections to Allah Ta'ala and making sure they face up to the challenges that are going to be thrown at them at various levels, whether it be in the university, etc., is addressed in Madrasah. With that, I conclude my side. Any questions on any aspects, please? Coming to the initial point Maulana mentioned about the challenges of philosophy and everything. Maulana is 100%. And when we say, okay, if it's cold outside, everybody's going to feel cold, whether you're in the north or the south. If the weather is cold, everybody's going to feel cold. And that we've seen in our children. The whole reason we have brought in the aspect of Imaniyat, connection with Allah Ta'ala, and these discussions is, we have seen, even though we say very Batley and it's very good, no it's not. When these children go out, they are facing the same challenges that somebody from down south will change. And we have seen children who've gone through the maktab system and they've gone into subjects of psychology and philosophy and they have got lost. We've seen that. So what we've done, and every madrasa can do that, there's different things that can give you support. For instance, Maulana Abdurrahman Mughira has written on the controversial questions, which, for instance, things like if Allah Ta'ala is merciful, how come this child is dying from cancer and this and that? So answering those questions. In the final year where we have all the children before they start trickling out, which is our year 9 children, we, on purpose, with the level of Quran, what we have is we can easily finish the Nazara Quran at even year 5 level if you want. When children are year 5, we can finish Nazara, and you'll see as soon as Nazara is finished, the child starts living up. We don't finish the Nazara of the child until year 9. We make sure they're doing 4, 5 suparas, and they stick with us because their Quran is not complete. Year 8, our books finish. Year 9 is a no-book class. It's a full session, 2.25 hours, but it's all discussion. They'll have a Quran session because they still have to finish the last 2.5 juz of the Quran. And that's done slowly throughout the year. 1.5 hours every day is for discussions, and all these controversial topics will follow one after another. The aspect of creation, anything controversial. So start of the year, we will get, because we've got teachers who go to college and universities in the daytime also that. So they will come and say, okay, this is something that's happened. We'll look at children, our own previous children who are going to universities, what type of challenges and doubts they are coming up with in the holidays and stuff like that. And we will try and our best. Then it's in the hands of Allah Ta'ala, but we will try our best to have open discussions. The children don't have kitabs in that class. So there'll be sometimes 2-3 weeks devoted to homosexuality. And we will get them to research what the argument from the other side is and how to break that argument. If it comes to, let's say, creation, all the doubts that, oh, there was a big bang and this happened and nothing can be created and there's evolution. So we go through all of that. And it's our response. Like I said, we've got to make sure we're giving them the farz-e kifaya knowledge, because that was our duty when parents sent them to the maktab. So it's very important that we also address these issues that are going to hit them when they leave. Yes, we won't be able to cover everything, and there will be somebody who will not pick up something and they might get astray. So it's very important to make sure these discussions and debate are happening with the teacher present, and they are free to open them up. We've had children in those sessions coming out that I've had this doubt for so long, this doubt for so long. So Maulana is spot on when we say we have to tackle those challenges, otherwise we are failing our children. Also, it's important to make it sure our madrasa atmosphere, alongside this, at no stage in our boys and girls we are instilling hatred for Islam. Teachers need to make sure our akhlaqiyat and treatment of the children is nice. Hazrat Maulana Yusuf Mutala Sahab alayhi rahmah came very far back in when we started our new Madrasah Islamiyyah building, and he had a discussion with our Asatiza in which Maulana mentioned, and he gave that comparison of children going to school, our black Asian children going to school at a young age into a nursery setup where the nose is runny and they're not, let's say, physically appearing as good as the local white children, and they'll have their different types of discrepancies. But even though there might be in the teacher's heart that, oh, this is a black Asian kid, or whatever they might have, but you will see them being professional. They'll pick that child up, put them in their lap, they'll say, dear, darling, all those precious, pyare words, and the child will be mentally inclined towards these teachers. And if we have in the madrasa, Maulana mentioned कि कोई बंदर कहता है, कोई गधा कहता है, कोई क्या कहता है, and the child is going, this Maulana's calling me this name, or this is a right of child, he's always messing about, and we are instilling that hatred into them. every child is valuable, every child is precious. Don't show, if those of you who look at these things, children, a lot of it sometimes is not factual also. If you go to these ex-Muslims and why they left, and sometimes there is a role played by a religious leader. They instill some form of hatred by some of their actions, and that is a common factor. But parenting is also contributing in there, but there is a factor of what they experience from somebody religious.
There was a recent survey done on the ex-Muslims. I think 60% or so was because psychological reasons they have this hatred towards Islam. Because of some psychological trauma.
So it's very important that the message that we give as teachers to the children is that of love, affection, kindness, what we saw from Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, affection. So we need to rectify our approaches in class. No, don't target any child. Our elders have written, don't label any child as bad or thing. Every child, if you come to his level and understand why is he acting like this, sit down with the child one-to-one, understand their behavioral issues and needs, and you will be tackling these problems which will stop them from feeling ill and hatred towards Islam. We live in testing, challenging times. We need to make sure we prepare our boys and girls. Our Appa's listening, it's very important. We have this dilemma more in the girls than in the boys. The girls have more doubts, more problems, more insecurities. So train yourselves, have sessions with people who are well versed in these type of discussions and how to address. If they come up with a question which you can't answer there, let them come back to them after addressing that with somebody elder who gives you the question, but address all their questions. Have boxes in your class where anonymously these last few years of children can post questions with doubts in, so you can address them collectively in class without pinpointing whose doubts they are. Have a box in the last few years for boys and girls where once a week you are addressing their anonymous questions. The children are faced with a lot of challenges. They are psychologically given the psychological warfare outside through media, through various outlets, through their mobile phones. And that is one aspect of parenting. As madrasas, we should call parents and make them understand what harm the mobile phones and having free access to Netflix till late at night and all that does on the mindset of the child is very important. So we also have to teach good parenting things. So have sessions for that also. Make sure you are addressing all the challenges the children are facing. As-sa'yu minna wal ithmam min Allah. We should put in our effort, and it's in Allah Ta'ala's hands to preserve their deen. Connect them to Allah Ta'ala, address their insecurities, address their questions. Think of the challenges that are outside that they will face at different levels. Meet with teachers who are in universities, Muslim teachers, and try and find out what's happening, what the insecurities are. Address them at earlier stages. Have a list of your ex-students. Call them in every now and then. Christmas holidays, they're all home. Call them. Keep that connection. And give them. Last year also, when our final batch of children, we took all their emails and contact numbers, the students' emails and contact numbers, and we gave the emails of 3-4 senior teachers and their phone numbers to the children, that in later life, whenever you want to contact us with anything, contact us on these numbers. Build that bridge. Boys and girls, everyone, every child is valuable, every child is important. Keep that connection.
In terms of syllabus, I mean, has anybody looked into maybe just looking at a small treatise, small work where it can be taught when they're 15, 16, where ilahiyat, uluhiyat, samiyat, or also known as tawheed, risal, and akhirah, they are mentioned with basic evidence, basic aqli evidence. Has anybody looked into this?
You know, the last year I mentioned where they have their discussions. Until now it was just, we start a discussion and it's done, right? We're trying to formalize all of it. So our syllabus team, because we've done all our year 8 books, the syllabus team are working on that discussion section. So it's not a kitab, but it's a folder and PowerPoint. So things like what you mentioned. So when it comes to the Qā'idah section, they will be looking at these. I'll liaise with you, so if there's things that you want us to...
I'm sorry to mention, the reason I'm saying that because I don't know why people have missed this. I know Imam Sanusi rahmatullahi alayhi, he had a set of works, the hierarchical creed. So he had a Kubra, Sughra, Sughra, then he did Shuruhat, auto commentaries, he had Shar Sughra, Shar Kubra. And one of the reasons Imam Sanusi had various books on the same topic was just 3 things: Tawheed, Risalatan, Akhirat. We had like 6-7 books and auto commentaries on that, because one of his missions was that to teach the entire masses the basic Aqidah with the rational evidence. Why? Because he believed that without evidence there's no najat. And so he had his student's father, he said to him, Shaykh, you wrote Sughra, but that's difficult. So he wrote Sughra. Then the women at home, they complained, they go, ye bhi mushkil hai. So he wrote Sughra. So that was then printed as Aqidah Hafida for grandchildren. There's only 2 or 3 sides. 2 or 3 sides, it's available in Arabic. So my suggestion was, if that was translated and just taught, because we can talk about controversial issues, but if they don't have the usul of aqaid, it's difficult.
So Sheikh, some questions from the secretary. In regards to where a teacher starts at a new madrasa and they realize that the foundation may possibly have been weak due to not having a full structure. So the students are reciting Qur'an now, but there are many mistakes. How do you rectify it without knocking the confidence of the students?
MashaAllah. We were at that stage when we started teaching our reception children this level of perfection. All the children who had done reception and were in Nazarah, their level of Tajweed was not what we have now across the board in the madrasa. We're going back 10, 15 years now. What we did, we can't tell them, okay, we're going to start teaching you some Qā'idah again, you're going to do all the letters because your makharij aren't right, and we're going to go through all the concepts. We'd have an outcry, the parents would, what have we been teaching them for so many years? So what we did, hikmatan, we wrote to the parents that we are upping our level of Tajweed, and due to that we are going to reduce the amount of lessons and sabaq from the Quran that they are getting. So what we did was, we started giving them, and we mentioned that in the letter also, they'll be getting 1 line in the start, and we'll be moving on slowly, and they'll go back to their original sabaq. So what we did, obviously the first step in Tajweed is correct pronunciation and makharij. So we gave them 1 line from, let's say, the 15th juz that they were on, and the ustad only concentrated on the makharij in that line. So we worked gradually, and obviously all the children grasped quicker, and once we were satisfied all the makharij is correct, we could give them more lessons, but we concentrated on different aspects. For instance, qalqala. You concentrate that they are perfecting qalqala. Once they don't grasp everything together, you need to make sure that different concepts, for instance, they aren't reading tashdeed properly, so you concentrate on all the tashdeed. You concentrate on the different levels of mad and mudur. So one concept at a time, in those 2-3 lines you're teaching them, and you perfect them. And you will see within a matter of weeks, you would have got them to those grassroots levels that you worked with, because they are older children, and slowly your whole madrasa will be transformed. It's not hard, but there's, like I said, commitment, and everybody needs to be on the same level. You can't say, oh, they like that and we're not making them qaris, because a lot of them are making lahne jali, which is simple. So it's important that we rectify even those children. We've seen how you do it in the Qā'idah. Do it with them, but reduce their sabaq and work on each concept at a time.
Yes. So children who are struggling with a particular lesson,
Yeah.
and it may take a day or two
Yeah.
longer, especially when you have a group structure. Chef, you mentioned that a teacher will give them assigned time at the end of the lesson. What if really there is no time that can be stipulated for that child? In that scenario, what would you do?
Right. So what we've done, if a child needs extra support, and it can be provided within the Madrasah framework. So we do have a set of teachers who stay behind half an hour or so after Madrasah to do this type of work. We will have a meeting with the parents and say, look, your child needs this support for X amount of weeks. They will need to, for their progression, need to give that time. We don't charge them extra for it, so there's no burden on the parents. And on our side, we are perfecting that need that the child has.
So if a child, in regards to the same question, sometimes the children become very bored.
Yeah.
So how do you keep them motivated that it is the same subject that they're just getting it wrong? But how do you tackle this?
Right. If it's an individual concept, for instance, it's a makhraj, you have to tackle it with that makhraj. You can't, if they don't know how to pronounce ayn, you can't move on to ghayn and expect to correct the ayn. So if it's an individual concept or makhraj, you have to tackle it there. But if it's, and then for instance, it's a tashdid problem or something, you can move on to a next sabak and each time teach them that tashdid aspect. So you can be, if it's a general thing that needs correcting, but you don't neglect that weakness until it's perfected.
Are there any tips that we can give to parents in terms of motivating them to memorize when it comes to the surahs? And how can we ensure parents, of course, they are not being taught this way, as you mentioned, allow the children to freely read, especially when the tutor has taught them in the madrasah. So how can the parents be effective at home?
Right. Again, for instance, with the Qā'idah, we've done the interactive Qā'idah, so the parents can sit down and make the children do that. With the surahs that they memorize, so in that same website, we have a basic essentials website also. In that, the surah, up till Surah Al-Duha, every verse can be clicked on and recited. So that listen and repeat method is used with the surahs also to help them memorize. All the du'as are recited on that website also, and they can click on those du'as and listen and repeat, listen and repeat. What we also have done in our structure of the basic essentials is we've made sure that there's only 4 new surahs every year and 1 surah per quarter. So in 1 quarter of the madrasah year is 8-9 weeks. So they're doing 1 ayat in 1 week. So even if they teach, they don't learn anything in madrasah, at home. If Surah Fatiha has 7 ayats, 7 weeks, 1 ayat a week, listen and repeat in madrasah and they'll learn it. So,
Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen Ar-Rahmanir Rahim.
So the whole basic essentials, the du'as, the kalimas, the surahs are like that, so it can be reinforced for learning to memorize at home also, and the child can have that support. Ji.
I had a question regarding students with special needs.
Yeah.
I was wondering if you have any, and if so, how do you help them and support them in certain things? Because a lot of the time, some of them, they're it's a struggle to get them to learn certain things. Sometimes they realize that they're behind, but other times they just read a certain way, and to try and correct them, it'll take a lot of effort and time, and you won't always have that time. And what happens is, if they've gone through quite a bit of Quran reading that way, and then they make you feel like that, we have to learn all of this, because they're not mukallaf as well, because they're ma'soom, and sometimes they don't grow out of a certain age. So for them, students like that, how would you you just let them be so that they're happy with learning what you do?
No. You will never let a child with his needs let him be and just let him drag on with the rest of the class. That you'll never do. Every special need child is different. Some will be able to do mainstream learning, but at a slower pace. Some, no matter how much you persevere, will not pick up how to read the Nazarah. There will be some children like that. They won't learn Nazarah, yes, they will learn to memorize. So what you will do, based on the needs now, some special needs children, we've had one child who initially used to, okay, come, we'll start on the basics. Some children will be able to spend the 2 hours in Madrasah and learn the English books and everything, but they will struggle with certain aspects of Nazarah. So for that, they will go to the one-to-one teacher. That's with a general child who at a slow pace is developing Nazarah and over time will pick up Nazarah. There will be those children who can't sit in Madrasah for that 2 hour or 1.5 hour session. Because the child's got autism, they've got other underlying issues, they can only have an attention span of 5-10 minutes and that's it. So what we've done is, those parents, we've interviewed them, looked at those children with their parents present, and we've given them a slot where the parent will come. Sometimes the slot is depending on their ability, will be 10-15 minutes, sometimes 20 minutes, sometimes for a full 45-minute session. And the parents will come, drop them off, pick them up, and they will go straight to that one-to-one teacher, have that intense slot, and then go away. And slowly, if they are developing and they're becoming more stronger, we might increase that time. And some of them, we have introduced them into the mainstream class also. There will be some children who can't learn Nazarah. They're too weak, they've got dyslexia, they don't have recognition, right? But their memory is good. Make them memorize their Salat aspects, teach them how to read Salah, and other basics, the basic tenets of faith and everything, out of memory. No kitabs, nothing, just teach them through memory. So there will be no child who won't even pick up that. They are master. But those who have the ability to memorize and do their basics, we've had children who learn 10 surahs, who learn how to read namaz, and who know the basic tenets of Islam, and mashallah, they're practicing Islam, they read their namaz, alhamdulillah. So, based on their need, do it. But you have to assess them and have, every community has those children with special needs. I know finances for madrasas aren't as good, we might not have that facility which a school has to dedicate one teacher per child, but we can have a special needs teacher who's trained to deal with these children and have 10-15 minute slots for each of the child from that community to come in and go. Ji.
Jazakallah for a fantastic, beautiful presentation, mashallah. Judging by your student, mashallah, you're doing very well. May Allah accept all the efforts and grant you more success. My question is regarding hifz. When we studied the hifz in Darul Uloom Madrasah, we had 2 hours or 3 hours of muta'ala. We used to have 1 hour after Fajr for muta'ala. We used to have 3 hours to give us sabak barador. We have plenty of time. But how do you allocate time to your students, year 5, year 6, you're saying they memorize 1 page. How much time do you give them to memorize the sabak and then give sabak barador? And how many days do you get them to the study of the hifz?
They're doing hifz 6 days in the week, including Saturday morning, 5 days in the evening. We have that test. Once the test is done and this child can do hifz, we have a meeting with the parents, with the mother and father, both. Before I used to call the father, but like all of you will know, most of the work is done by the mother. So she needs to understand hifz. Sometimes they don't know what is hifz. They don't know what is sabak, they don't know what is sabak door, they don't know what is revision and door at the back. And so we have a meeting, we go through all of that with the parent. And we have an agreement with the parent. Before, many years back, we used to have a morning session where the children have to come 6:30 in the morning, and the teacher would come, but poorly attended, and sometimes it's not practical for parents who are going to work to pick up and drop off at that hour in the morning. So we came to an agreement with every child who wants to do hifz with their parent, that learning at home in the morning is the responsibility of the parent. If you want a crown on the day of Qiyamah, there has to be that level of effort from and commitment from you. So it's a partnership between the madrasa teacher, the child and the parent. We give them that obligation that every morning the child has to wake up, learn his new lesson, and you have to be present. You can't wake him up and the child sits there daydreaming and it's time to go to school and he hasn't learned anything. It's your commitment, and we have a planner where daily the parent will sign that they learn from this time to this time in the morning. At night time they went over the door with us. At tea time they did this, but they have that sign, daily sign, done by a parent. So they will have an early day. They start 6, some start at 6:30. They will learn the sabak. They will read the sabak door to their parents. Those children who need to will also read the door to their parents. So all three things that a Hifz child is done at home. They'll go to school all day, come back at tea time. They'll start madrasa with us around between 4:30 and 5, slightly earlier than the rest of the children. And they stay there in madrasa till 8 o'clock, and they will go through all three things, the sabak, door and door daily. In the madrasa, the routine is they will read their door first. If they know the revision, they will then do sabak, door and sabak towards the end of the session. If they didn't know the door, they won't get any sabak that day. It's like al-khabaru kal-mu'ayana. If you come down, inshallah, visit the Hifz classes. We've got 7 Hifz classes, and you will see that the level of recitation, the level of door, and everything is there. When we have our exams, if they've done the amount of suparas they've done, the midterm and final exams, they'll have a question from every juz that they have done. So if they've done 30 juz, they will have to answer from 30 places. So each class will have a 2-day exam. In one class there is 10 children, so in one day we will test 5 children only. And over 2 days that class will complete the exams, midterm and final. But the benefit is that throughout the year their door is strong. They'll obviously prepare and revise for the exam, but that it's a great commitment from the parents and the child, and mashallah, the level of revision is there. Most of our children do Taraweeh every year. We allocate them in different mosques and private places, and it can be achieved at that strong level, and the children, if we keep them connected, can maintain it. And mashallah, we have children who are, for now 10, 15 years have been doing Taraweeh every year, where they're getting hardly any mistakes in their Taraweeh. The level of recitation is also maintained.
So does that mean they don't study fiqh or they don't study anything else?
Whilst in Hifz, initially there was no fiqh or anything. From level 5 they do that 3, 4, 5 years of Hifz, and then we bring them to revise their masail towards the end. But what we started doing recently is that especially those children who are finishing or have finished daily, because they don't have any sabaq now, their load is not as much as so what they will do is, because their class is normally continuing till 8:15, so after 7:15 when the rest of the madrasa is finished, they will attend a session with one of Shokat Saban will refresh the things that they have missed out on.
Yeah, I had a question about Taraweeh. There's like a big issue in some places where like the Huffaz, they won't really know Tajweed, or like there'll be some like big mistakes and they just put them on just for their practice, or sometimes they don't they'd rather do the khatam than do a little bit with Tajweed. And it's like the whole Taraweeh, it's like you listen and you hear the mistakes and stuff, so it's like obviously when our teachers, when we didn't know Tajweed, you see the discomfort and anger on their face, like you're reading this like this, and then when you're in Taraweeh, then you have to it's a big issue sometimes, because you want to be able to listen to Quran that's like proper and Tajweed and everything. So how would you go about that? Do you start doing your own Taraweeh, or would you try and get the committees involved?
Reading incorrect Quran in Salah and outside Salah, both not allowed. So prepare, obviously as ulama, it's our responsibility to guide the committee that this is what you should be looking for, so that the namaz is correct. Otherwise it's sinful to recite it, especially if there's Lahni Jari taking place and the children are just going to Jami'ah and they're running through the Quran, not allowed. Haram to read like that. Ask any Darul Iftar, they won't give permission to do so. So understanding the needs, making sure the correct Hufaz are appointed for Taraweeh and stuff is an obligation on the committee and the ulama connected to that committee.
For an autistic child who enjoys learning and coming to the madrasa, they struggle in letter formation changes. what are the tips or advice which you have?
Again, you'll obviously use various methods, flashcards, have them have a small whiteboard if need be and write your letters on there and chop and change. You can't have them learning like the mainstream. So you will have to use flashcards and different methods and approaches and do it. They will, in the initial stages, especially if they've got an element of dyslexia, not remember what they have done. So you will have to take things very slowly. They might progress at a snail's pace, but you will see progress, inshallah.
The question I had was in the secondary school years, especially year 9 onwards. So we have a few children in the year 9, 10 classes. They're mixed together in just the last few weeks. So the students, they told me anyway, because I like to have a lot of discussion with them, that in school, in the PD lessons, they've been learning about pornography, the most searched categories and these issues, and even about masturbation and things like this. How do we sugarcoat this, or should we be very straightforward? And then as well, and a couple of boys, they even came to me separately, and they asked, being explicit, they asked about oral stimulation, and they were in year 9 as well. And then I first had to ask them, why are you asking this? Where have you heard this? And they were laughing about it. Oh yeah, we know a few things. And then I gave them an answer that was found in some of the fatwa books, that it's disliked and not something that we should do, just to see their reaction. Then they said, but why? It's something pleasurable, isn't it? We do these things. So these are happening in year 9 and 10 classes on a regular basis.
Yeah, so like I mentioned, our year 9, we will be tackling these questions, masturbation, everything, right? And our children, mashallah, because they open up, if the Madrasah is being very polite and indirect, the children said, stop sugarcoating it. We are taught it very explicitly in the schools. So we have to be open with them also and say, hit the nail on the head and say, look, this is allowed and this is forbidden by Allah Ta'ala. Every pleasure is not something that you are allowed to indulge in. These are the boundaries, this is allowed, this is not allowed, and that is where our test is. Right? So we have to come up with the answers, convince them, and have that open, frank discussions about these things. We know they are being taught, and we know that immorality and modesty and everything is out of the window, and they will do it at a level where there's no haya left in them. So as teachers, we need to have those sessions where the discussions are happening. Like, that's why I said, let them have anonymous question boxes, and whether they put those questions or not, or they feel it's not appropriate in class, we bring that subject up. Because it's happening, we need to address them.
Because from what I've noticed, especially in our Indo-Pak community, these areas are regarded as very
taboo. Yes.
Like
No, it's not.
It's like, especially if it's with a teenager, it's like, oh, you're already ruining
It's
them.
part of Nahi and Munkar, because we know that Munkar is there, we have to prohibit it, we have to explain it. It's not, it doesn't matter what our culture feels about it. It's what Islam demands.
I had a question. Post year 9, do you run any classes or keep in touch days with
Yes.
students?
We will have, we do have drop-in sessions for them. We do try and get reunions organized, and regardless, when they're leaving the last year, we tell them. So even yesterday, this morning also, former students came in, oh, we've come to meet the teachers, and the teachers know when they're here, they'll ask about their welfare, their needs, and they'll have that chit-chat. So that's a constant yes. Ji.
Well, this is a bit of a strange question, but I think it's probably the best place to ask it. You know how, when you see the Quran, obviously wasn't written until much later. You know how this, I've noticed that some of the students, right, they can't read, they'll read. This is not special need kids, this is normal kids. They'll be able to read the words, some will be clever, some might not be clever, but they know 20-odd surahs. They can't, they haven't learned them by reading inside. So I was asking my fellow studies in our place, I was like, is there room for this, like to capitalize on this, like teach the kids, like we spend so much time teaching them Qur'ān and all this stuff from the Kitab. you know, it's not really radical, but if we didn't have a Qā'idah, we just taught them hifzan, like have like a maqra style where this, and then teach, and have adab, akhlaq, and all this. But of course, we need some of this.
Not every child will have that ability and that level of memorization and retention. So you won't be able to teach the whole Quran hifzan. And if you're only teaching them, let's say one juz hifzan and then they leave you, and they've never learned how to recite the Quran, so recitation is very important. And for them to be able to learn to recite, learn to memorize, they need to learn to recite. So they go hand in hand. So recitation is a need, and it's not hard. We've got 800 children who have all learned to recite. So yes, if there is a shortage of resources and something, we're in a situation where we're not allowed to have the Qā'idah and everything, then we might need to go through that extreme situation where it's only maqra. But otherwise, the recitation is very important, it's fundamental. اللهم لك الحمد كما ينبغي لجلال وجهك وعظيم سلطانك، لك الحمد حمدا دائما من دوامك، لك الحمد حمدا خالدا الى خلودك، لك الحمد حتى ترضى ولك الحمد اذا رضيت ولك الحمد بعد الرضا. اللهم ربنا ظلمنا انفسنا وان لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. رب اغفر وارحم وتجاوز ما تعلم انك انت العز الاكرم. اللهم اهدنا واهد بنا واهد الناس جميعا. اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا. رب زدني علما. اللهم نسألك الهدى والتقى والعفاف والغنى. ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا نعوذ بك من الفتن ما ظهر منها وما بطن. ربنا نسألك الخير كله ونعوذ بك من الشر كله. نسألك من خير ما سألك منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم، ونعوذ بك من شر ما استعاذك منه عبدك ونبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. ربنا وتقبل دعاء بفضل سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون وسلام على المرسلين والحمد لله.